So hello everyone, I should probably explain what the hell this is.
Hello Bond fans, and welcome once again. I'm recording this video on the 5th of September 2020, which means it is approximately 10 years since I took this camera into the basement of my student house in Leeds and started recording what would become my first ever Bond-related YouTube video. Yes, it is the 10th anniversary of my Bond-related YouTube ventures. Feeling old yet? Because I am. I say Bond YouTube stuff specifically because I did actually have something of a life uploading stuff onto YouTube before that. I would edit like character montages for a cartoon series that I really liked when I was growing up called Beast Wars, and I also made little animated videos with some like my action figures and stuff because I've always kind of had a desire to just kind of make stuff and put it, you know, online, I guess, and have people see it. I guess I should talk a little bit about what made me want to start doing this, and I guess it all kind of comes down to the fact that I was at university, I was a film student, and it occurred to me that I had not rewatched the Bond series in its entirety for some time, and I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different. It was coming to the end of summer break, I still had a few weeks kind of left, and I wanted to start a new project, and at that time blogs were all the rage, and video blogging was just about becoming a thing. This feels incredibly weird to say, and it makes me feel very old, but I think it is important to note that when I started doing this kind of stuff 10 years ago, YouTube was still relatively new, and specifically with the kind of edited content that I liked. At the time, I was a big fan of people like the Nostalgia Critic on Channel Awesome. I'm not really a big fan of his videos anymore, but, you know, I watched him and Angry Video Game Nerd, and they kind of set the expectation for what a kind of online review with a comedic twist would be, I think. The whole kind of shtick for those guys was that you kind of, you know, you play something or you see something and then you kind of review it, you talk through the plot and you make little jokes here and there and kind of rip into it a bit. And I guess, you know, I was very much influenced by those guys when I started doing my stuff. But the difference was that I was doing it about Bond, which is something that I've loved since childhood and I was revisiting in its entirety for the first time in a long time. So a part of it was that I just kind of wanted a project, and then the other side of it was that growing up, I became a Bond fan in like late 90s, early 2000s, and reading a lot of books, watching all the TV shows about James Bond and stuff with like talking heads and whatnot. It was often, you know, the books are largely written by a lot of people who had the same kind of stories about seeing From Russia with Love and Goldfinger and Thunderball at the cinema and how seeing those films changed their lives and made them Bond fans. But that was not the case for me, who grew up in the 90s watching Pierce Brosnan Bond. So I kind of guess that I felt that I had a voice that I wasn't seeing kind of like out there, and like I say, YouTube was kind of like a new outlet for people, and you didn't need like, you know, you didn't need a publishing deal or a degree or whatever to just kind of make a video. And I've, especially in those early days, I just kind of felt like YouTube was kind of like my soapbox, and I could just sort of like get up and say, this is how I feel, this is what I think about these films that I really like, and I just kind of felt like I needed to express what my opinions were, and hopefully I would find other people with similar opinions to me. So that's a little bit about why I started the channel, and in honor of the 10th anniversary of this channel, I'm going to be watching for the first time in years, I'm going to watch the first couple of videos that I actually uploaded to the channel, which were an introduction video, just to kind of say like, this is what I'm doing. I was starting a new series called My Weekly Bond, where, if you can believe it, I would be uploading a video weekly and review all of the films in order. So I uploaded the introduction and then the review, of course, of the first film, Dr. No. Now, some of you might be sort of like scrolling back through the videos in this channel, and you may notice that the first video uploaded on this channel that you can see was not uploaded in September 2010. I can assure you that is when I started uploading videos, but I get asked this question a lot about a lot of my older reviews, the My Weekly Bond series, about why they're not on this channel anymore. Some of them are, like the first like 5 or 6 are in a compilation set, so you can watch those if you're you know, a masochist and you want to see some relatively poorly edited video reviews of the Bond films. But those older videos are not on this channel anymore because as much as I was happy making them at the time, I don't feel like they best represent where the content on this channel is now, and because they are the film reviews, like, you know, and this is a James Bond channel largely focusing on the films, and that's why I'm doing this whole, like, re-review thing of the films, because I feel like my voice has changed. I feel like the kind of content I'm making has changed quite a lot. I feel like I'm far less influenced by those guys that I was 10 years ago, and I've kind of found my own style, and I'm not really trying to replicate or be incredibly influenced by other people anymore. So you know, and not that anyone was forcing me to make the editing decisions that I made or whatever, but I just feel like if people were to be discovering this channel for the first time, I wouldn't necessarily want their first experience to be videos that I'm not very proud of that I made nearly 10 years ago. So, yeah. But maybe they're not as bad as I remember, because, like I say, I haven't seen them in some time, and I'm going to be watching one through today, and probably cringing an awful lot as I do. So, here we go. I am so nervous about this. I'm going to be cringing all the way through this. If you want to see these videos without my comments over them, then you can find a compilation, like I say, of some of my very first video reviews on this channel, so please do head over there, because like I say, I'm going to be talking over some of this stuff. But yeah, here goes. Okay, we have the introduction video, which is 3 minutes and 32 seconds. Let's go and see what 2010 Calvin had to say when he was starting a YouTube channel. Oh, Calvin had a montage. You know, this isn't a bad edit. The Bond theme. Like, I should point out as well that when I was making these videos, I was using a program called Windows Movie Maker, which is not the most precise of editing softwares. It's kind of like the very most basic, like, free thing that you get on Windows, or you got in Windows back on the day. So you couldn't even go frame by frame through some of the you know, edits, which I would just find impossible now. So a lot of the times the cuts are just kind of like on the best sort of guess or whatever. But I like this. I made this montage completely myself. This is not sourced from anywhere else, and I remember being really proud of it at the time, and I think I'm still quite proud of it now. It's not that bad. Okay, maybe I'm not going to be cringing too much through this.
So hello everyone, I should probably explain what the hell this is.
I'm cringing.
Basically, I've been a huge James Bond fan my entire life, and recently when I was cleaning out my room, I realised just how much James Bond crap I've actually accumulated over the years.
I have all the films on video, I have selected soundtracks, I have a load of the books, including a first edition of From Russia With Love. I've got trading cards, playing cards,
I don't actually have a first edition from Russia With Love. I found out it's not, and for the longest time I thought it was.
Video games, pens, a shitload of the 40th anniversary model cars.
I swore a lot more in those days.
I've got all the films on special edition DVD and Ultimate Edition DVD, and a few of them on Blu-ray disc now. I even got some of the special
God,
edition
even on
DVDs signed by
Blu-ray!
director
God,
Guy
can you
Hamilton.
believe? No voiceover at all.
I even came 6th in the Win Aston Martin competition that they used to promote the Ultimate Edition DVDs a few years ago. That's how big a fan I am. I love James Bond. And yet I haven't actually watched the original films in about 4 or 5 years. So basically I thought I'd make my way through all 22 films again and post video, blog, review things as I go.
No voiceover? Nope, just some clips.
I'd also like to point out that these video, blog, review things are purely opinion-based.
So you're going to hear an awful lot of Timothy Dalton bashing when we got into his films in the series. And that's not to say I think he's a bad actor. On the contrary, I think as long as he's playing a supermarket manager, a Time Lord, or a theatrical hedgehog, he's perfectly fine. I just think he makes for a shit James Bond. And that's probably because I tend to prefer my Bond films to be silly and campy and fun, as opposed to really downbeat and serious.
God, I haven't changed that
But
much.
no doubt I'll get onto that later.
So, with that in mind, I shall begin my weekly Bond, cheesy name I know, with Dr. No.
Okay, there we go. First video. That wasn't so bad. I'm slightly amused at that little sidebar to Timothy Dalton bashing. As I said, like, my opinion on that has changed quite a lot over the years, as I think you've seen in my content. I think at this time I would probably have described License to Kill as being my least favourite Bond film, and that has changed quite dramatically since then. But I also do feel like I said, the kind of video makers that I was influenced by at the time, the style of the time was that you had to kind of be very provocative, you had to post, you know, thumbnails of you pulling an outrageous face and that kind of stuff. Like, that was just kind of the expectation. And I feel like now online content has moved into more of a video essay kind of space, and I still like to make fun of some of the things in the films and have jokes here and there and take a more light-hearted approach. You know, this is not a serious, you know, film theory class or anything like that, but yeah, I think that I was probably wanting to set expectations maybe for the kinds of people who were going to be potentially watching this this channel with that. And I guess my sensibilities on the style of films that I like hasn't changed all that much. I still do prefer the sort of campier, fun, silly Bond films and less so the more serious ones, but interesting. But now let's head over to the Dr. No review, which is, where is it? Okay, it's 16 minutes and 18 seconds long, and that's something else to point out. At that time on YouTube, you could only upload videos of about 15 minutes, I think? I think it was 15 minutes. This one was slightly over, and I think I had to cut it in half and upload it in 2 different segments. I couldn't even upload, like, video thumbnails at this time, which is crazy to think about. Like I say, YouTube was a new thing still, relatively. So that was, yeah, I remember a lot of the time making these videos and having to, like, really rush through all my thoughts really quickly because you only had, like, 15 minutes to do it in. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case with Dr. No, but here we go. Let's give it a watch.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my first weekly Bond. Please don't hold that title against me, I can't do any better, I'm rubbish with titles. I'm also aware that that isn't the poster for Dr. No, but it's the only Sean Connery James Bond film poster I have, so I thought, you know, I'll just stick that up. That way the background won't look so bland. Oh, give me a break. Anyway, Dr. No.
Great way to begin your video review series by just apologising
with
for
a series
everything.
of bizarre electronic beeping noises before we are introduced to the classic gun barrel opening, which would become a standard trademark of the series.
God, the video quality is so bad. But again, like I say, it was Windows Movie Maker editing. You know, I was recording my footage on discs, like mini discs. The camera took mini discs, and I would have to rip these off and then put them in the editing software, if you can believe that such archaic technology once existed.
After a jazzy title sequence, the film proper begins and we see British intelligence agent Strangways and his secretary murdered by a trio of assassins known as the Three Blind Mice.
My accent is much more naturally northern in these videos. I've lived in London for 8 years at this point, so my accent's kind of morphed.
Played here by Sean Connery. This scene immediately sets the style of Bond's world, glamorous and sophisticated. Bond introduces himself with his trademark
Bond. James Bond.
and flirts while playing chemin de fer with a beautiful woman, Sylvia Trench, played by Eunice Gayson.
I will have been so happy with that pronunciation at the time.
It's an idea at that.
According to Eunice Gayson, who plays Sylvia Trench, director Terence Young originally envisioned the character to appear in the first 6 James Bond films. In the first 5, Bond would be cavorting with her at the beginning of the film, and then eventually in the 6th film she would become the main girl and be present all the film. Obviously this didn't happen.
Bond is called away from his cavorting to the MI6 headquarters, where he is briefed by his chief, M, played by Bernard Lee. M in this film is gruff and to the point. Bernard Lee plays him perfectly. It's also a testament to the character that although Bond does not fear his exotic enemies, a simple glance of disapproval from M can reduce him to a chastised schoolboy. We are also introduced to the character of Major Boothroyd in this film, though here the character is played by Peter Burton. Major Boothroyd in future entries would be known as Q, be played by Desmond Llewellyn, and supply Bond with a lot of exotic and wildly elaborate gadgets. However, in this film, he simply provides Bond with his new Walther PPK.
Simply.
Bond would use the Walther PPK right up until Tomorrow Never Dies. It is at MI6 that we are introduced to Moneypenny, played here by Lois Maxwell. The Bond-Moneypenny relationship is established perfectly in one short scene.
You never take me to dinner looking like
Kind of
this,
zipping
Jane.
through the film at this rate, only 3 minutes in, and nowadays that'd have been 20 minutes of video for this much film.
Legal use of government property.
Flattery'll get you nowhere, but don't stop trying. Now,
I'll talk more about Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny in other entries, as she is in the first 14 films. It's also worth mentioning that this is the first film to feature the James Bond hat toss. Bond is then sent to Jamaica to investigate the disappearance of Strangways, but not before he has a bit of sex with Sylvia Trench, who somehow manages to sneak into Bond's apartment and seduce him,
A bit of sex.
thus being the first woman of the series that Bond shags.
Shags.
Bond arrives in Jamaica, and we get a lot of shots of suspicious-looking people, including Bond's chauffeur, who turns out to be a double agent and who Bond has his first real fight of the series with.
God, my
It's only a
accent's so
small fight,
northern.
but it already showcases some of the great stunt work from Bob Simmons.
Showcases, great. God, my accent's changed so much over the years. This is what
Bond
living
also
in
has his
London
first
does to
vodka
you.
martini 23 minutes in, however it is mixed and not stirred. While interviewing some of Strangway's friends, Bond learns of island fisherman Quarrel, played by John Kitzmiller, and goes to interview him.
Your name, Quarrel?
Maybe.
I'm a friend of Commander Strangways.
Oh, ain't that nice? I like people whose friends are people.
Quarrel is hostile at first, and the pair even get into a fight before we're introduced to Felix Leiter, played here by Jack Lord, who explains that the two are on the same side and that Quarrel is aiding him. Quite why everyone feels the need to be so mysterious is questionable. Quarrel is definitely one of my favourite of Bond's allies, with great charm and warmth. Even though he's clearly terrified of the supposed dragon on Crab Key, he still agrees to take Bond there. Felix is played young and cool in this film. Felix has never really been a favourite character of mine, I just find him quite boring, especially compared to the more colourful allies Bond has had in future entries.
Such as Quarrel, Karen Bain from Russia with Love, Tibbet in A View to a Kill, even Joe Don Baker's character in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies. Which is a real shame, because Felix Leiter in the book is actually pretty cool.
Bond learns from Felix and Quarrel of the mysterious Dr. No, who operates a bauxite mine on the
Dr.
nearby
No.
island of Crab Key, close to where Strangways had been collecting mineral samples. Bond does his best Columbo work and goes to investigate Professor Dent, played by Anthony Dawson. Professor Dent is an effective secondary villain, and he gives us someone to boo and hiss at until Dr. No is finally introduced. Dent is nervous about Bond snooping around and heads to Crab Key, where Dr. No gives him a large venomous spider to kill Bond with, because just shooting him would be far too easy.
Really zipping through the plot. I guess that's because of the limitations of how long the video could be at the time.
Is the room where Professor Dent talks to Dr. No. It's a very simple design, but very modern and effective. The whole of Crab Key is really just a showcase of what Ken Adam is capable of. Of course, Bond kills the spider, but only after a very tense scene. It's nice to see an actual look of fear on Bond's face, rather than the nonchalant stance he'd take to these life and death situations in future installments.
I'm giving a lot of opinions in this, actually, which I'm surprised at. I remember this as being kind of like me just like running through the plot until I get to the end, but there's some opinions in here, very succinct ones, but they're there.
The next morning, Bond heads to the Governor-General's office to read the official file on Crab Key, only to find that it has been conveniently lost by the Governor's secretary, Miss Tarot. And after catching her listening at the keyhole and suspecting her of being an enemy agent, Bond naturally asks her out on a date. On the way to pick her up, Bond gets himself into a car chase with the three blind mice, who end up driving off a cliff and exploding. For some reason.
My narration is about as dry as a good martini.
Not being one of the most exciting car chases in the series, seeing as it is pretty much the series' first real car chase, but it's not the most convincing either. I think it's the terrible back projection more than anything else.
It's so funny, like, my opinions haven't really changed all that much on this one over the years. It's quite crazy.
I think they were on their way to a funeral.
Bond then arrives at Miss Tarot's house and proceeds to seduce her.
I'll just go and put some clothes on.
Don't go to any trouble on my account.
I'm pretty sure that classifies as sexual harassment these days, but then, you know, she's a villain, what the hell.
Of course, Bond waits until after he's shagged her before having her arrested.
What's going on?
Forgive me, book her, Superintendent, will you? And, be careful of her nail varnish.
Bond then waits in the house for Professor Dent to arrive, and promptly kills him in cold blood. Bond would never frequently kill in cold blood, however when he does, it is always quite effective and powerful. Later in the night, Bond and Quarrel leave for Crab Key. Lucky for Bond's libido, he wakes the next morning to see Honey Ryder, played by Ursula Andress, emerging from the sea in a bikini.
When we get married, we make them grow. La-dee-da-da-da, in a row. Underneath the mango tree. La-da-da-da-dee. Come watch for the moon. La-da-da-da, mango tree, me honey. Make boo-loo-loo.
So obviously Ursula Andress coming out of the water is one of cinema's most iconic scenes, but I think what I love so much about it is the fact that it's so simple. It's just Ursula Andress coming out of the water, you know, they don't do any fancy editing, music, slow motion bullshit like that. Die another day. You know, it's just very simple but elegant. They don't need to do anything else, because it's Ursula Andress, she's one of the most gorgeous women to ever have lived.
Honey Ryder really is the ultimate Bond girl. She's intelligent, yet naive. She's resourceful and courageous. Honey Ryder really set the standard for the Bond girls that would follow in her footsteps. And very few have come to equal her.
Where's your boat?
I guess I was a bigger fan of Honey Ryder then than I was these days.
Well, that tingled my racistometer.
Honey leads Bond and Quarrel inland after a boat is
racistometer.
destroyed, despite both her and Quarrel being fearful of the dragon that supposedly inhabits Crab Key.
Those are dragon tracks.
Yes, because dragon tracks are very similar to that of an articulated lorry.
The dragon turns out to be a flamethrowing tank.
Quarrel!
Quarrel is incinerated, and Bond and Honey are captured and decontaminated of radiation before being taken through to a rather lavish suite.
I've heard a lot of people talk about how Ursula Andress is naked during the radiation cleaning scene, and this still clearly proves otherwise. I mean, come on, I can't have been the only one who went through the DVD frame by frame just to see if she was naked.
They are then taken to Dr. No's study, where we meet our main villain, an hour and a half into the film.
I never was really that big a fan of Dr. No when I first got into the series, but watching it again, he is actually a really cool villain. I don't know if it's because they hold off showing him for like an hour and a half, but he's so creepy and awesome.
Dr. No explains to Bond that he is part of a criminal organisation known as Spectre, and plans to disrupt a space launch from Cape Canaveral with his atomic-powered radio beam. The pair exchange a few bitchy remarks.
And unfortunately, I misjudged you. You are just a stupid policeman.
Tell me, does the toppling of American missiles really compensate for having no hands?
Ooh, meow!
Before Bond is taken away to a private cell. Bond, of course, escapes the cell by crawling through the air vent. He then disguises himself and finds his way into the base control centre. Bond overloads the nuclear reactor, just as the spacecraft sets off, and thus saving the day. This, however, sets off the alarm, and that really pisses off Dr. No. Bond and Dr. No have a brutal hand-to-hand fight before the Doctor slides to his death by boiling in the reactor's cooling vat.
It's certainly nothing on getting blown up, eaten by sharks, or impaled by a nuclear rod. I think what adds to the boringness of Dr. No's death in the film is the fact that his death in the book is fucking insane. He gets buried under a pile of bird shit. I'm not even kidding. At the first brush of the stinking dust column, Dr. No would turn.
Swearing all over the place. Goodness. Again, I think that was just a part of making these kinds of videos at the time. You felt like, well, I felt anyway, that I needed to be provocative or, you know...
And then only a mound of yellow bird dung that grew higher and higher. God! Bond's voice gave back an iron echo from the walls of the cabin. He thought of the screaming lungs stuffing with the filthy dust, the body bending and then falling under the weight, the last impotent kick of the heel.
I had to rush through my review so many scenes for the sake of this extended clip of me reading the book. It's a bit daft.
You've died like that, that's fucking hilarious. I've not actually read Dr. No all the way through, so I have no idea why Dr. No would have a gigantic mound of bird shit on Crab Key, but, you know, I'm sure they could explain it somehow. I look at that, everyone in the reactor room, just as soon as they see James Bond, they all just run away. I mean, there's about 36 people in that room. Why don't, you know, even if just a few of them go up, you know, fight him, bring him down, turn down that dial thing so Crab Key doesn't explode? I mean, you know, makes sense, but they just leave it to Dr. No. No wonder the place fucking blows up.
Just swearing all over the place.
After a series of well-thought-out interrogations,
Where's the girl I came in?
Bond finds Honey, who is being slowly drowned to death, and the two escape.
Originally there were meant to be a load of giant crabs in this scene, and the explanation was that Dr. No was experimenting on Honey to see how much pain she can take. Which would have made a lot more sense than just sort of slowly drowning her to death.
Bond and Honey escape Crab Key just as it blows up, and the day is saved. Sir Bond goes on to bag his third girl of the series, and the film ends on what would become the traditional fashion of having Bond alone with the main girl at the end of the film, either getting it on, with it on, or just got it off.
His secret agent code number is 007.
And so that's Dr. No. While I don't think it's one of the best Bond films, it's far from being the worst. I'd place it somewhere in the middle. It's a very entertaining spy action-adventure thriller, and does well in establishing James Bond's glamorous world. Sean Connery makes for an excellent Bond, and I think he's at his best in his first 3 films. He plays the upper-class Bond very well, to say he was previously a rough-and-tough Scotsman and had to be groomed for Bond by director Terence Young, who taught Connery how to be sophisticated.
So basically, if Connery hadn't been groomed by Terence Young to play James Bond, he'd probably have ended up playing the part as a working-class, rough, unsophisticated fellow. Daniel Craig, then. Not that I have anything but love for Daniel Craig.
While initial reviews of Dr. No were mixed,
What was that?
the film was a giant financial success, especially when considering that the film only cost $1 million to produce. It went on to earn $60 million worldwide. This, more than anything else, ensured that the film was definitely going to receive a sequel. And indeed, James Bond will return in From Russia with Love.
Huh. Okay, well, there we go, everyone. That was not actually as... I wasn't cringing as much as I thought I would. But I think I'm actually more surprised at how... I don't feel like I've changed all that much in a weird way since then. I mean, yes, it is obviously very wooden and stilted, and it's quite strange, really, for me to watch myself in this way, and certainly I'd like to think I've become a bit more comfortable on the camera since this video, but dare I say I got a little bit nostalgic watching it, which is not a response I thought I was gonna have. I literally thought I was gonna be like watching it with like all of my appendages cringing horrifically throughout, but that wasn't too bad, I guess. I'm actually a bit surprised at how kind of melancholy that made me feel, and nostalgic. It's so weird seeing this and thinking like, oh, actually, I felt like a lot has changed, and maybe not a lot has changed. I don't know. Like, obviously, the video quality is, I hope, better, and the commentary is a bit better edited and perhaps a bit less wooden. But overall, I don't know if my review of Dr. No today would be all that much different in terms of the opinions expressed within. So I guess, after all that, I suppose the main sort of thrust of what I want to kind of do and say on this video is thanks to you watching this. And for people who, like, every now and then I'll receive a comment or a message from someone saying, oh, I've been watching your videos for, like, 8 years, 9 years, whatever, and it's like, oh, wow, that's really lovely and nice. Like I say, I kind of started this as kind of like, it was my virtual soapbox in a way, to kind of just stand online and shout out my opinions of James Bond into what was a void, essentially. Like, obviously when anyone starts a YouTube channel, there are no subscribers, there is no one watching, but eventually over time people might start watching and commenting, and then you can start responding and messaging people and exchanging thoughts, and eventually becoming friends. Like, I've actually made lifelong friends through just the Bond community, which is, I don't know if I ever dreamed that would be the case 10 years ago. I maintain this channel, and I think it's the case across the board for Bond content creators. I think no one does it because they want to be a YouTube star, as it were, or, millions of subscribers vlogger or whatever you have. You do it because you love the series, you love the franchise. I love this universe that Ian Fleming created, Albert R. Broccoli, Harry Saltzman, Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson, all the people involved have made, and I just want to talk about that an awful lot. I have a lot of thoughts and opinions, and I like having an outlet where I can do that and then talk to other people who share similar opinions and views, or don't. And I love talking with people who have conflicting opinions on Bond films about. And the Bond community, you're never gonna, like I say, it's, no one does it, I don't think, because they want to, like I say, be some kind of YouTube celebrity, because the Bond fandom is quite, well, small in comparison to a lot of other franchises. You do it, and I know I do it, and I know a lot of other people who produce Bond content do it because of a love of the series and a desire to talk about it with other people. I've often said that I think the Bond community is, it's the best. Like, I just adore it. It's, on like Twitter, Facebook, these things, it's just so much fun when you can just, like, chat about, you can make a joke about, like, Mrs. Bell from Live and Let Die, and people will get you, and that's quite lovely. And yeah, I think compared with other fan communities that I've dipped in and out of, Bond is by far and away the most positive experience I've had online. And I guess I'll just always be grateful that people watch these videos, comment these videos, like these videos, subscribe to this channel, and I know, good lord, I'm waffling like a madman right now, so I'm going to wrap this up, because I've got a lot more to kind of talk about, which I'm going to be doing on the live stream. I just want to say, whether you've been watching this channel for 10 years, since that very first video went up, or since you've been watching it since, like, yesterday, I just really appreciate it, and thank you so much for supporting this small corner of the internet where I have placed my soapbox, and I shout out my opinions of James Bond, and hopefully, some other people find some entertainment in that, and because, that's why we do these things, and it all comes from a love of this character and this franchise. So, With all that in mind, Bond fans, please do leave me a comment in the comment section below, and also below are links to my social media pages, my Twitter page, my Facebook page, my Patreon page, if you want to go one extra step in supporting this channel. I hope to see some of you on the live stream on the 6th of September. But until next time, Bond fans, until for the next 10 years, hopefully, so long for now.